For as long as we've existed as people, we've wrestled with what happens when when we don't. Is death this final unyielding wall, or is it maybe a doorway? So today, we're going to explore a theological perspective that frames death not as an end, but as a return.
The text we're looking at today kicks things off with a truth we are all absolute experts at ignoring. This journey we're on, it has a destination. It's the one experience that connects every single one of us, whether we want to think about it or not.
And really confronting that reality, it can be totally transformative. The source shares this experience from theologian Henry Nouwen, who, after a near-fatal accident, discovered that staring death right in the face can completely reframe how you see the life you're actually living.
Right, so first, let's just sit with that for a moment. That fundamental and, often uncomfortable reality of our own mortality.
For the author of the text we're digging into, this wasn't some abstract idea. It got very real after losing his parents. And that experience, it delivered a message that you just can't ignore. You too will one day die. But instead of just fear, it sparked this powerful resolution to live with an awareness of death.
And this leads to a pretty fascinating paradox, doesn't it? We pour all our energy into trying to live, but the text argues that life itself is a process of spending a finite resource. Every moment, every single action, it uses up a little bit of that life energy, bringing us one step closer to its conclusion. So from this perspective, the act of living is also slowly the act of dying.
Okay, so if death is this certain, this fundamental to our very existence, why are we so bad at talking about it? Why is it the great unspoken subject?
Just think about how we talk. We almost never say someone died, do we? We talk around it. We use these softer phrases because, as our source text points out, we're just deeply uncomfortable with the stark finality of the word itself.
And you see this reinforced all over our culture, right? We tell these stories of scientific progress that kind of hint at a future where death might be a problem we can just solve. It makes it feel optional, or at the very least, a very distant concern. It helps us treat our most certain reality as if it were almost fictional.
But this anxiety, it's anything but new. The text we're looking at points way, way back to ancient writings like the book of Job to show that this question, if a man dies, shall he live again, has been echoing through all of human history.
And this is where we hit a real fork in the road. Our source material lays out two profoundly different ways of answering that ancient question.
So on one side, you've got the modern scientific view. Death is a hard stop, the final end point, annihilation, the end of consciousness. But then, on the other side, the text lays out this biblical perspective. Death isn't an end at all. It's a transition. It's a change of state.
And here's a really crucial distinction. In this theological framework, death wasn't supposed to be part of the original plan. The text argues it entered the human story as a consequence, a result of a broken relationship with the divine, captured in phrases like, "The wages of sin is death."
So if death isn't an end, then what is it? To answer that, the source gives us this really powerful, central idea, the metaphor of a return. And just that one word, return, completely reframes the whole conversation. It's not a disappearance into nothingness anymore. Instead, death becomes a homecoming, a journey back to where we came from.
And this idea of a return actually has two parts to it. First, our physical body, made from the earth, it returns to the earth. But our spirit, the essence of who we are, that returns to its creator, to God.
Now, this is where the figure of Jesus becomes absolutely central to this whole idea. According to the text, his purpose wasn't just to teach us how to live, but to fundamentally redefine death itself, to transform it from a tragic consequence into a victorious gateway. Okay, so this isn't just theology for the sake of theology. Redefining death this way has some profound implications, not just for what happens in the future, but for how we experience grief and loss right here, right now.
The text we're looking at brings in this quote from theologian Stanley Grenz to really spell out what this means in practice. This belief doesn't get rid of grief. Loss is still deeply, deeply painful, but it reframes it. It allows us to grieve not with the finality of despair, but with the hope of a future reunion.
So really, the bottom line here is that in this view, death's power is broken. It's no longer the final victor. Instead of being a defeat, it's simply a passage, a transition into something more.
And so the text leaves us with this final, really challenging thought. This perspective isn't just about offering hope for an afterlife. It's about fundamentally changing our this life. If death really is a doorway, not a wall, how does that change the way you walk through the world today?